The house was still, just the way I liked it. I could hear the subtle whir of the ceiling fan and the ticking of the clock in the hallway. My mornings had always followed a quiet rhythm. Coffee brewed strong, one splash of oat milk, two Splenda, and a soft hum of the Weather Channel in the background. The kind of routine that said, control. I stood at the kitchen sink, watching a neighbor walk her dog past the trimmed hedges. Same woman who complained at last month's HOA meeting that someone wasn't rolling their trash bins in on time. Houston's suburbs had their own kind of drama, most of it happening behind fences and carefully worded group texts. I grabbed my keys from the hook. I had a meeting with Emily, my sister. We hadn't sat down like this in a while, not really. And truth be told, I wasn't sure what she wanted, but hope's a tricky thing. You hold on, even when you know better. I took a deep breath, slipped on my flats, and told myself this was just business. Little did I know, I was walking straight into a trap. Our father built the company from nothing, an old-school finance firm, structured and tough. He taught us how to read people, how to keep our heads down, and how to never, ever show weakness. I listened. Emily smiled through it. While she worked the clients and charmed the board, I was the one behind the spreadsheets, late nights, and silent wins. The face of the family. That was always her. The brain behind the operation. That was me, quietly. And in silence, I disappeared. They saw me as dependable, I remember once saying to a friend, which eventually became invisible. But today was supposed to be different. Emily had asked for a sit-down, no assistance, no PR talk. Let's talk about the estate, she said. Just us. Part of me wondered if she was finally ready to split things fairly. Or maybe, just maybe, she'd acknowledge my part in all this. The office was cold, too cold. Her assistant offered me water, then vanished. Emily greeted me like we were about to plan a wedding. Smile, hug, small talk. I almost bought it. She gestured to the sleek table. A man in a navy suit stood waiting. Our lawyer, she said. Just here to help clarify things. Something twisted in my gut. Then she slid a thick envelope across the table. I need you to sign these, she said. It's time we streamline things. I stared down at the papers, legal jargon, pages of it. Then I saw it. Full transfer of my shares, all rights to the estate, full control to Emily, no discussion, no compensation, no time. What the hell is this? I asked. Her voice softened, but her eyes didn't. You always said family came first. Well, now it's your turn to prove it. My hands went cold. She had planned this. Every word, every smile. It wasn't a meeting. It was a setup. And then, as I hesitated, she said something that made my blood freeze. If you don't sign, I'll tell them about Dad's real will. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The one you found. The one you hid. I blinked. Hard. That's not... I stopped. It didn't matter what I said. She already knew how to use it. She leaned in. You think they'll side with you when they hear you kept that from them? From me? I felt like I was 17 again, standing on the porch while she cried to our mother about something I didn't do. And just like back then, the truth didn't matter. Sign it, she said, or everything gets messy. She brought up that old cabin trip, the fight, the things we never spoke of again. Her words weren't just threats. They were chosen, surgical, designed to cut right where I bled. I looked at the pen. It felt heavier than it should have. I wanted to walk, to flip the table. But I didn't. I signed. It wasn't just a signature. It was the erasure of my existence. Emily stood, smiling, like she'd just won a game she'd been playing alone. I drove home on autopilot. Didn't remember the turns, didn't remember locking the door behind me. I went straight to the kitchen, turned on the faucet, let the water run until it was scalding. It made no difference. I wiped down the counter that was already clean, reorganized the silverware drawer, folded a blanket on the couch that hadn't been used. I did everything but scream. I kept thinking, maybe she needed it more than I did. Maybe it was easier this way. Maybe. I was still trying to be the peacemaker. But underneath it, something had cracked. I looked at the stack of documents now sitting on my dining table like a bomb with no sound. I whispered to no one in particular, "This is not the end." Belle texted me that morning like nothing had happened. "Come by for tea," it read. Let's have a family chat like old times. I stared at the screen, reading the message again, wondering if she'd somehow forgotten what she pulled days ago, or maybe she thought I had. Either way, she was pretending we were still sisters in the purest sense of the word, and I, like a fool clinging to the wreckage, agreed. When I pulled up to her house, it hit me again just how different we'd always been. Her place looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Perfect hedges, marble steps, a fountain that served no purpose but to say, I made it. Inside, the walls were lined with family photos, smiling faces, holidays, graduations. She was always in the center. I wasn't in a single one, not even a corner. I told myself I didn't care. Just tea, I said out loud, like that would make it true. Belle greeted me with that same polished charm. You look lovely, she said, already halfway back into her kitchen. I kept my mask on. I smiled, nodded, told myself maybe I'd misunderstood her intentions last time. Maybe she had a reason. Maybe I was being dramatic. I wanted to believe that so badly. Later that evening, tea turned into dinner, and dinner turned into something else entirely. She had invited the rest of the family over, cousins, aunts, even Uncle Jim, who never left his recliner unless there was brisket involved. Everyone seemed surprised to see me. But Belle, ever the showrunner, jumped into hostess mode like it was a staged performance. Midway through the meal, she tapped her glass. I just want to say how proud I am of Valora, she began. She made a selfless decision this week, something rare these days. My stomach dropped. She was doing it. Right here, right now. She chose love over money, family over friction. That's who she is, Belle went on, smiling like a politician. A few claps broke out. A nod here, that's real love from Aunt Cheryl. I wanted to scream. I opened my mouth to clarify, to tell them the truth, but Belle beat me to it. She's always had a heart too soft for business, she said, chuckling like it was endearing. I laughed, quietly, because if I didn't, I might have cried. My voice had no place at that table. Later, as I drove home, I kept replaying it all in my head. The way everyone looked at me, like I'd just been canonized, like I wasn't the woman who'd been cornered into giving everything up. No, I was the saint now, the good sister. But it felt like dying quietly. I tried to remember when I stopped speaking up. Was it at dinner tonight? Or years ago when Belle first started interrupting me mid-sentence and nobody seemed to notice? Don't rock the boat. I'd heard that 1,000 times growing up. Every time I had a feeling, every time I had a question. And now, that same voice echoed in my head as I wiped away mascara in my rearview mirror. Keep the peace, Valora, Mom used to say. It's your gift. Back then, I thought that made me strong. Tonight, it just made me feel small. I told myself I'd fight back someday, but not yet. I poured a glass of wine and opened the drawer where I'd shoved the papers. I hadn't looked at them since the day I signed, but something in me needed to see it again. Halfway through, a line near the bottom caught my eye. Legal speak, buried in a clause I'd skimmed past, transferring not just my share of the company, but the deed to my personal property, to a holding company Belle controlled. My chest went tight. I read it again and again. This wasn't emotional manipulation. This was theft, or worse, planned, rehearsed, and executed. I handed her my legacy on a silver platter, I whispered, heart pounding, and she made sure to keep the silver. The realization didn't make me cry. It made me still. Not the kind of stillness that calms you, but the kind that comes before a storm. She knew I wouldn't read the fine print. I sat there for a long time, holding that page like it could burn. The idea of calling a lawyer crossed my mind, but so did the shame, the fear. What would they say? That I was greedy? Bitter? That I should be grateful for what I had? And God help me, I almost believed it. I folded the documents carefully, slid them into a manila envelope, walked to the guest bedroom where I kept the lockbox, and placed them inside. As I clicked the lock shut, I said it out loud this time, not a whisper. This isn't over. Not yet. But soon. The ticking of the clock in my hallway had never sounded so loud. I lay there, still, my eyes fixed on the ceiling like it held answers. It didn't. All it did was reflect the same silence I'd let fester inside me for too long. The house was quiet. too quiet. I used to find comfort in that, but lately, it just reminded me how alone I was. Belle's voice from that dinner still echoed in my mind. Her smile, that speech, the applause. And me, sitting there like a placeholder, clapping along with the rest because I didn't know what else to do. I hadn't said a word that night, not when she twisted the truth, not when they turned my silence into consent. They say silence is golden, but sometimes it's just guilt dressed in a robe. I got out of bed and walked to the hallway cabinet, pulled out the manila folder I'd locked away days ago. I sat down on the couch, the paper cool under my fingertips. Every signature, every clause felt heavier now. I didn't just sign a document. I signed a permission slip for her to rewrite our story, and it wasn't the first time. I remembered the estate meeting, 5 years ago now. Belle had invited me over for what she called a family formality. Just routine stuff, she said. Nothing serious. The room was polished, just like her. Lawyers in suits, coffee already poured, papers tabbed and ready. Belle greeted me with a hug and handed me a glass of wine. Let's just get through this and then relax, sis. I hate these legal things too. She made jokes, waved off questions, kept it light. The attorney barely addressed me directly, just pointed to where I should sign. I felt a knot in my stomach, but I ignored it. She's my sister. What could go wrong? I told myself. Now I knew. That meeting was the moment everything shifted. Not suddenly, quietly, strategically. I placed the folder back down and started sifting through other drawers. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it, a torn envelope addressed to Belle, but my name was on the return. I opened it and scanned the contents. It was a bank statement, not mine, hers, dated a few years ago, and it mentioned a private account, Inheritance Holding LLC, a name I'd never heard before. The date matched up with the estate transfer. My estate transfer. I sat there for a moment, frozen. Then I opened my laptop, looked up the LLC name. It was real. A shell company registered to Belle, masked under layers of filings, and it held every piece of the business we once built together. Or so I thought. She didn't just manipulate me. She turned me into a silent investor in my own erasure. She didn't use my name. She sold it, I said out loud, the words tasting like metal. This wasn't just about trust. This was about strategy. I hadn't been tricked. I'd been outplayed. I walked to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. I tried saying what I should have said to Belle. Why'd you lie? Why'd you treat me like a problem to solve? But none of it came out right. Too soft, too sharp, too late. I sat down and pulled out a notebook, one I hadn't touched in years. On the first page, I wrote, "The things I didn't say." Page after page, the thoughts poured out, things I let slide, things I swallowed, moments I convinced myself I was overreacting just to keep the peace. "You can forgive a thief," I wrote, "but not if they keep coming back to your house." That's what this was, a pattern, and I'd helped shape it. I closed the book and walked back to the living room, sat down, breathed. Then I opened my laptop again, this time with purpose. I drafted an email, addressed to Dorothea Puente. She wasn't a lawyer, but she'd worked in law offices for years. Trusted, smart, quiet. I attached the scanned documents and typed just one line in the body. "Can you help me see what I missed?" I hit send. Closed the laptop, turned my phone face down. And just like that, I took my first real step towards something I hadn't dared to face until now. The email's subject line glowed on my phone as though lit from within. Ownership document, final confirmation. My heart dropped before I even opened it. I sat at the cafe table near the courthouse, holding it in one hand while sipping lukewarm tea with the other. Dorothea's words were clear, cold, precise. The documents I signed weren't temporary. They were irreversible. Ownership permanently transferred. Irrevocable. Exclusive rights. Power of attorney. Legal language like a guillotine blade. My chest tightened. It was the same kind of cold smile Belle used to wear when she thought she held all the cards. The kind that made everyone else believe she was just being protective, careful, loving, almost. But beneath, a master planner was working. Dorothea warned me. If I wanted to challenge this, there was a narrow window. Don't wait. I folded the email closed, hands unsteady. 6 months ago, Belle invited us all for brunch. Not a big deal, her idea, because family needs to stay close, she said. I remember Aunt Margie's laughter, Uncle Joe passing the butter, the smell of fresh biscuits. Belle said, offhand, technically, I could sell this place, and you couldn't stop me. I laughed, thinking it was a joke, something to spark conversation. Aunt Margie nodded. She's the boss now. Belle raised her glass and said, let's just say I streamlined the paperwork. I thought she meant routine stuff, more organized filings, maybe putting things in order. I didn't think about what paperwork. Not then. But hearing it now, after Dorothea's legal breakdown, those memories sting like fresh cuts. Belle wasn't joking. That evening, Belle knocked on my porch unannounced. I wasn't expecting her. The light was fading. You could smell night air mixed with the scent of jasmine from my neighbor's yard. She held 2 wine glasses and a bottle. I didn't answer right away. She smiled. I thought we could celebrate moving forward, as a team. Her tone was warm, but something in her eyes made me sit straight. I held one of the glasses, careful, trying not to tremble. She mentioned the finance company. I'm filing a new patent, tying up all our old work, she said, voice soft but firm, just ensuring it is secure. The patent was something I knew nothing about. She leaned closer. If you contest the estate filings, what happens then? I tried to ask a clear question, voice dry. Do you realize this is irreversible? She paused, smile flickered. Then, be careful what you stir up. You never know what else could surface. She left the scarf she was wearing draped over the porch rail. I watched her walk away, the fabric fluttering like a signal. Back inside, I stood in my kitchen. I couldn't trust the calm. Something had shifted. I stared at my wedding photo on the counter. It was old. Faded edges, dog-eared. My forehead touched cold glass. Father used to say, the loud ones bark, the quiet ones bite. I had always believed the loud voice was the dangerous one. Maybe I was wrong. I made tea, listening to water boil, counting seconds, trying to settle the rush in my chest. Fear was no longer abstract. I knew Belle had designs beyond what I'd realized. I typed a message to Dorothea. Can we meet in person? Then I turned my phone face down. Night came, dark and still. But sleep didn't. Morning broke, and I set to work quietly. I gathered every document I had. The estate transfer agreement, the original will copy, that paper with Belle's name in a shell company filing. I photocopied everything. Labels, dates, revisions. I stored duplicates in my desk drawer. Others slipped into a file in a safety deposit box. I wrote down when I first heard the brunch comment, when I signed the documents, when I last saw Aunt Margie glance at me, then Belle smiling. I didn't call Belle, not today. I contacted a private investigator, someone I trusted, who knew nothing of family dramas, only proof and records. I told him nothing more than the bare facts. The scarf on the porch. Later, I bagged it like evidence. Folded it carefully, noting the pattern and the way it hung. Belle probably thought she left it by accident. Something in me changed that morning. I was no longer waiting. I was keeping watch. The morning light slipped through the cafe windows as I waited for Dorothea to arrive. My hands wrapped around a half-warmed cup of black coffee. I kept replaying every email, every text I'd saved. I felt exposed, like a skeleton uncovered after years in a closet. When Dorothea slid into the booth opposite me, she didn't smile. She had her tablet out, her eyes steady. "You've been defrauded," she said quietly. Her words weren't angry, they were factual. But fraud is hard to prove unless you act fast and smart. I nodded. My throat felt raw. She told me we needed a timeline of every threatening text, every unexpected visit, every phrase Belle used to twist the truth. "This isn't just legal, it's psychological warfare," Dorothea said. I felt shame and a strange clarity mixed together. Shame that I didn't see it sooner, clarity that maybe I could still do something. I left the cafe with documents printed, photos saved, voice memos lined up in my phone. I walked home feeling both weaker and stronger than I'd ever been. Weeks before, Belle sent me texts, innocent-sounding ones. I just did what was best for both of us. You were never good with money anyway. But one line seared me. Remember what happened the last time you tried to take control? Don't ruin things again. Back then, I dismissed it as sisterly concern. Now I see it for what it was. A warning. It was never about care. It was control. I forwarded those texts to Dorothea with a trembling note. Can we use this? I watched the delivery report. I watched the timestamp. And for once, I didn't delete them. I held on to the proof. Later that day, Belle showed up at my doorstep. Mid-afternoon sun. She carried wine, 2 glasses. She knocked. I didn't want to open, but what if it was important? She stood there smiling, still the same voice. I thought we could move forward as a team. Her tone was sweet, but underneath it was a knife. She spoke of financial pressures she'd invented, cited favoritism I didn't know existed, and she didn't hold back. If you don't cooperate, things might not stay pretty. You sure you want to force their hand? I held the glass with a hand that trembled. My heart was loud, but something in me had turned. I asked, steady, what happens if I contest the filings? Her smile flickered. She whispered, be careful what you stir up. You never know what else could surface. She walked away, but her presence lingered. Her scarf still hung over the rail of my porch like a silent threat. That evening, I stood in the kitchen with the wedding photo between my hands. I thought about how many times I'd forgiven her before, because I didn't want to be the problem. It felt easier to be quiet than to fight, but I'd come too far to fall back into old patterns. I cross-referenced the brunch memories, the estate documents, the scarf. I organized all of it. Dates, names, voices. I called a notary to witness a signed affidavit recounting the estate transfer day. I found a safety deposit box and hid a flash drive inside with all digital files. I sent a message to Dorothea. I'm ready. Then I walked to the porch. Sun was dipping, the air cooling. I hugged the envelope with Belle's handwriting, no signature, but too familiar. Something inside me tilted. I wasn't trembling anymore. I was waiting. A letter arrived late that night. The envelope bore her handwriting. I didn't open it immediately. I left it by the door, staring at it under the porch light. I felt its weight before touching it. I walked into the office that morning knowing something had shifted. The air felt heavy, like the walls had ears. I came to collect my personal files, nothing more, but whispers caught me as soon as I stepped into the foyer. Staff standing in little knots, lowering eyes. A coworker approached, handing me a folded paper. I unfolded it. It claimed I was planning to take everything and leave. No signature, just a smear. My heart pounded. I held it out to HR, voice tight. This isn't true. Silence hung. HR nodded, calm, no support. Belle's influences, buried in polite nods. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry, but anger curled in my veins, slow, hot. Later that afternoon, I attended the charity gala hosted by board members. Dressed in simple black, I felt eyes tracing me, some with shame, many with curiosity. Belle took the stage and addressed the crowd. We all want unity, she began. Valora's been questioning loyalty, loyalty of those who built this together. Gasps. Murmurs. I felt my pulse in my throat. Betrayal. I wanted to shout that she was twisting everything, but my voice stuck. She spoke of family sacrifice, of how she was only trying to protect us all. Her words landed like blows. I stood rooted, pride warring with devastation. Then I played the recording. My father's voice filled the room, clear and certain. He named me his equal in the estate, trusted me with property, spoke of fairness. I watched faces fall, Belle's mask slipping. The crowd shifted. Some stared, some turned away. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I simply let the truth stand there. The contradiction between Belle's public words and that tape was unmistakable. She had spoken of loyalty. My father had spoken of legacy, with me included. I asked for a meeting. Family, board, everyone present. You twisted my words. You hid the truth. My voice steady. Belle tried charisma, laughter, excuses. It's complicated, she said. You know how things are. But I held the floor. No breaking, no begging. I detailed moments, brunch comments, signed papers, threats thinly veiled, faces flushed, some in support, some discomforted. The evening that had promised spectacle instead revealed the fracture I'd been nursing like a wound. I returned home when the sky was just dim, streetlights blinking on. My chest still heavy, but inside I felt something settle. I texted Dorothea. They heard the tape. I laid out logs, photos, text messages, but I also felt fear. What would Belle do now? Would she retaliate? Would the family split? I didn't know. I sat in my living room, looking at the soft glow through the curtains. Late that night, there was a knock at my door. Someone I never expected standing there. A week had passed since the tape played. The memory of faces, stiff and uncertain, lingered in my mind. I woke up with resolve. I dressed for war, in a crisp blouse, clean tailoring, something she'd never expect I owned. I walked into the lobby with my chest tight, but my shoulders squared. The conference room door was open. Staff trickled in. Reporters hovered just outside. The projector cast pre-meeting shadows. I could feel the eyes, judgmental, curious, hopeful. I rehearsed my speech in my mind. Truth undeniable, evidence impeccable. No more pleas, no more hiding. When the lights dimmed and the room settled, a professor appeared on screen. Dr. Hartman, who'd taught Belle years ago. She spoke with authority and calm. My records show the diploma Belle claims from Greenfield College was never awarded, Hartman said. I held my breath. Emails, transcript copies, correspondence I unearthed. The audience murmured. Belle's face faltered, the practiced smile cracking. And the truth hit the room, dignity against deceit, shock mingled with vindication. I saw disbelief, some bitter recognition among those who'd sided with Belle. Betrayal exposed under glass. The gasp from a board member felt like permission to finally breathe. I stood. I cleared my throat. I will not sign away peace for my family's comfort ever again. My voice was steady. I declared I would no longer comply in silence. For years, I swallowed lies. Tonight, I own the stage. Belle tried her arguments. You don't understand the weight of legacy, she insisted, but I cut her off. Legacy built on lies is no legacy at all. The room shifted, tension thick, hope fragile. Eyes turned to me, some in agreement, others waiting to judge. But I felt something new. I was no longer invisible. After, people drifted toward me in small clusters. Staff who once skirted my greeting offered tentative smiles. A young assistant apologized quietly. Board members exchanged looks, some stiff, some warm. For the first time in years, I sensed allegiance shifting. Belle stood at the back, lips pressed tight, admiration mixed with fear in her eyes. It hurt me to know how badly she had to lie to keep standing where she stood. That night, beneath the glow of stage lights, I gave a speech. I thanked those willing to see the truth. I spoke of fairness, dignity, and the courage it takes to refuse complicity. As I stepped off the stage, I noticed in the back corner a reporter lifting a camera. Someone I never thought would show up. Someone whose lens could change everything. I felt poised, not afraid. The fight wasn't over, but I stood my ground. I walked into the boardroom that morning with Dorothea at my side, Marie Robards behind me, and two board members who quietly stopped sidelong glances long enough to nod. The room smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. The overhead lights buzzed, projector screen ready. I'd gathered all the evidence, original contract with my father's signature, dated copies of his will, documents showing the shell company filing under Belle's name. My hands trembled for a moment, but I steadied them. I opened the folder and began. This is not misinformation, I said, voice steady. I pointed to clauses, to metadata timestamps, to exchanges Belle tried to bury. Board members leaned in. Some mouths fell open. Belle rose abruptly. She tried interrupting. I held the clause up. See this part here, I said. You cannot invalidate what was established before amendments made later. My heart raced. The air felt electric. Someone was filming. Phones raised. Authorities watching. It was fast now, momentum surging. Then Dorothea uncovered what I'd been fighting for. Metadata proving the real contract dated before any changes Bell made. A document no one had seen, annotated, time-stamped. Bell's fraudulent amendments after Dad passed, overcome by the validity of what existed earlier. The tension broke the surface. The audience gasped. My voice cut through. You can't rewrite history by forging filings. Bell's face grew pale, shock mixed with defeat in the room. It wasn't just me anymore. The weight of everything else, every erased photo, every silenced conversation began to press. I tasted it, vindication, bitter and righteous. She struck back. Bell clawed for cover. She produced a letter, supposedly from me, saying I'd stepped aside for family peace. The signature looked familiar, but I noticed irregularities, email metadata not matching, handwriting off, phrasing she never used. The document was a smear campaign in disguise. She threatened countersuits, media leaks, but I asked for proof. She faltered when I asked about date stamps and witnesses. The board murmured. The room shifted. Fear flashed in Bell's eyes. She was fighting dirty. I felt fear too, but I felt resolve stronger. By afternoon, the media had caught wind. Local business journals, TV crews. They asked questions I'd carefully prepared answers for. Clips of the boardroom revelations circulated. I gave them a quote. Truth doesn't fear light. Bell's name came up, her credentials, the forged amendments. People's eyes shifted. Doubt bloomed. Evening came folded in quiet. Back at my study, I sat with the folders spread out, evidence stacked like stepping stones. I remembered that chair by the bathroom memory, the place they always put me. Tonight, that image stabbed sharp, no longer a symbol of shame, but of something broken I was repairing. Bell's scarf remained on the doorway. It still dangled, still a message. I touched it, folded it neatly, placed it in a box of my father's old things. Then my phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Local DA reviewing evidence in Marlowe estate case. Hope and dread surged together. I tightened my grip around the phone, and I breathed. The sun came through the blinds differently that morning. I woke without dread, without the familiar weight pressing on my chest. I made coffee, black, 2 sugars, listened to the hum of the house waking. Light spilled over the kitchen table. I opened the window, smelled jasmine, heard a car passing. For first time in weeks, I felt still. I thought about Dad, how he used to tap his fingers on the ledger, hum old tunes when he balanced numbers. I read comments on the video that had gone viral, strangers saying they'd lived through something like this, or worse, and found strength by seeing mine. Thank you for speaking. My God, that was me. I felt humility, calm resolve. I knew I was not alone. The storm had passed. Later, the call came. The county court said the contract was nullified. Ownership of the estate and company was reinstated to me. My lawyer let me breathe first. Bell would face fraud charges. A hearing was scheduled, but no jail time yet. I asked immediately about the employees. What happens to the staff? Because if Dad's legacy meant anything, it meant protecting them. The business would run under fair terms. And then there was twist. Hidden in Dad's original will, a clause requiring a portion of profits to fund community education, something Bell ignored, something I pledged to revive. Relief flooded me. Justice was more than personal now. Bell asked me to meet at her condo. The air was cold. She looked different. No makeup, defensive posture, bitterness softened by exposure. We talked. Childhood memories, Mom's sayings, my birthday when she gave me Dad's old ledger. She said, I always thought I deserved this more. You were Dad's favorite. I didn't argue. I said, you chose shortcuts. I chose consequences. No tears, no apologies, just truth. We parted quietly, not reconciled, but a kind of understanding. In the afternoon, I visited the memorial garden on the estate. Dorothea walked beside me. I placed a stone engraved, "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." We planted flowers Dad used to love. I told Dorothea I would reopen the scholarship he'd funded secretly. So many kids would benefit now. I felt gratitude, for strength, for those who stood by me, for every piece of the past I refused to let define me. As dusk settled, I sat on the porch where I once heard them erase my name. I held a pen and paper, drafting my new business plan under my name. I said to the air, "Life gives you what you tolerate, not what you deserve." I finally stopped tolerating silence. The sky turned lavender. A soft breeze shook the curtains. Then my phone buzzed. A proposal appeared on screen. Something unexpected, something hopeful. I smiled, letting it in.